A regular show has its fair share of zany characters in its expansive cast, but no employee is quite as mysterious as Mark Hamill's Skips. And while the character's past is slowly revealed in different episodes throughout the show's first 4 seasons, his entire backstory is unveiled in the half-hour special, Season 5 Skip's Story. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. We're going to go through all 22 episodes of Skip's Tale and break down how the episode's unsurprisingly hilarious and surprisingly tragic story explores the character in a truly fascinating way.
A long time ago, in a high school far, far away.
Instead of going down the radical route of excluding the main pair, the episode starts off with a frame story of Mordecai and Rigby helping Skips with the roof of the park building as they stop for a lunch break. It's a somewhat subtle detail that's not really subtle at all, but after Rigby fails to catch his sandwich, Skips provides another one without eating anything himself, setting up the idea that Skips clearly looks out for the guys in a way that none of the other characters really do. Anyway, Mordecai and Rigby begin to reminisce on what they would do if they were immortal like Skips, asking him questions about it before eventually asking how he even became immortal in the first place, prompting him to eventually tell the titular tale of the episode. The frame story will peek into the episode a couple of more times that I'll mostly just skip, but just in general, it's a nice regular showy coding for this very not regular showy episode. The first scene of the story introduces us to this mixture of old-timey diction and very 1980s movie high school, something that contributes greatly to comedic gold throughout the episode, as well as the younger Skips, currently going by Waltz, keying us in that besides explaining his immortality, his episode's also going to fully explain the reasoning behind his name hinted at in Diary. We also meet Headmaster Bennett, a fill-in for Benson, who gives us some classic Benson comedy without ever seeming like he's taking away from the main plot of the episode. Anyway, Waltz and Bennett's conversation reveals the reason for his sudden transfer to this new high school, being that he's getting continuously expelled for fighting, something that Waltz seemingly doesn't mind to face the consequences for. Bennett eventually sends him out into the high school, where we meet a younger Gary, going by Gareth, who takes him out to meet the school. This short scene is filled with some great gags and music, and the visuals complete the entire identity of the school as one of the more memorable settings in the entire series. Gareth takes Waltz to meet the rest of his crew, consisting of the even younger versions of the Guardians of Eternal Youth, also going by a different name just like everybody else, being the Immortal Student Council and Glee Club. All of the student government jokes in this one are great, but midway through the first one we get interrupted and meet the antagonist for the episode, and the last younger version of a character we already know, and the only one still going by the same name, Clorgbane, who begins to terrorize his brothers, only to get confronted by Waltz. The following scene is the exact same bully confrontation scene that gets interrupted by staff that you've ever seen, but the entire cast of wacky characters juxtaposed against the few humans and the clash of modern high school and old-timey architecture just make the entire scene a ridiculously funny jumbled mess. Everything I mentioned up until this point has been almost entirely related to the comedy of the episode or its building of this really uniquely fun setting, and while both of these are great, they don't entirely justify this video or the episode's double length. What does end up taking this episode to the next level is the introduction of Skip's love interest, Desdemona. That's not to say that Mona doesn't contribute to either the comedy or the world building. The rom-com parody aspect of this episode, as well as her impressive combination of 1700s and modern dialects, are both impressive, but from the very beginning of their interaction, Waltz and Mona have a genuinely charming dynamic. Their convo is cut short by Gareth and the babies introducing to Waltz a plan for him to fight Clorgbane, something that Waltz is less than hesitant to do. The illustrations of the plans are really funny, but the scene mostly just serves as exposition and to set up the main conflict with Mona and Waltz's relationship, being that he wants to fight and she's not a fan, clearly establishing the fantastically more than stereotypical teenage movie plot that the series parodies throughout the rest of the episode, even going as far as immediately launching into them at the prom committee, where their relationship becomes even more palpable. When confronted by Clorgbane a second time, Waltz chooses Mona over his desire to fight, sending Clorgbane back into the hallway swearing revenge. Mona of course approves this choice, agreeing to go out with him immediately after. Right before the halfway point of the episode, it takes a moment to raise the stakes, more clearly establishing Clorgbane's power being a threat to more than just Waltz's love life, essentially forcing him to agree to try and defeat him in a fight. We then get an intentionally hilariously repetitive montage backed by some Depeche Mode, which immediately juxtaposes the creation of the Fist of Justice and Waltz and Mona creating decorations for their Back to the Future styled ocean prom. The montage ends with the pair skipping around the park and the school, with Mona joking that Waltz should be called Skips with how happily he runs along with her. This is brushed aside for the moment, as Waltz gifts Mona a locket with their pictures in a sentimental moment that manages to shine through the parody of the episode, as the pair make the obvious decision to go to the prom they helped plan together. Before then, however, Waltz gets the news in this wonderfully subversive scene that the only time that Clorgbane is available to fight is during prom, setting up the climax of the episode and a very regular show version of the double date plot, even involving claiming to go to the bathroom to attend your other engagement. Before that though, Waltz goes to pick up his date, where we get one of the funniest lines of the episode.
Are you new in town, Waltz? I don't remember you from Desdemona's earlier classes.
I just switch schools a lot because I keep getting expelled.
Oh.
Which goes along with the otherwise more than stereotypical prom scene that works to further add to Waltz and Mona's relationship. The scene at prom is really well designed too, and the dialogue hits new levels of anachronistic value. The awkward Waltz trying to get out of prom to fight Clorgbane gives some of the final fantastic jokes of the episode, as the second song, Forever Young, leaves a little bit to be desired in its montage. Luckily, it quickly cuts to the big action sequence of the episode after the second photography joke, and this action sequence immediately delivers with some classic regular show dramatic music, as Clorgbane easily dismantling Bennett, clearly setting up that the stakes of the episode are no longer just getting expelled. While not ridiculous or anything, the choreography does its job to make the beginning of the fight flow really nicely as the action gets bigger and bigger. And if for some reason you're watching this video without having seen the episode, I promise that the next scene will not be something you see coming, as Clorgbane's attack climaxes with his morning star, and that's right, Mona dies. Like, not in a regular show way where she comes back as a ghost or something. She's really permanently dead. The episode just kind of pauses to let the audience feel the significance in this moment, as a rage-filled Waltz uses the Fist of Justice to somewhat anticlimactically launch Clorgbane into the stratosphere, as Waltz goes to check on Mona, only to find the locket he gave her as all that's left. It's a shockingly somber scene that definitely could have used a little bit more time, that the episode definitely could have had if it cut some of those montages, but I digress, as the scene still sets up the ending of the frame story that I'll get to in a second. First, Walt's voiceover describes how he went through a rough period after Mona's death, never quite loving anyone else in the way that he loved her. We catch back up to him as he's talking to Jareth and the babies, who inform him that he didn't even permanently defeat Clorgbane, and that he's gonna return in 157 years, something that we saw play out in season 3, showing that Mona's sacrifice was somewhat in vain. Waltz is given the opportunity to obtain immortality in order to combat his return, something that the Guardians of Eternal Youth warn comes with a life of pain as you watch your loved ones perish as you live on. Waltz, however, doesn't hesitate, stating that the one he's loved has already left him. The babies have one final question for him though, being what name he wants to be reborn into. Waltz pauses for a second as he remembers a montage of his love, set up against a somewhat out of place but sick synth beat, remembering how he and Mona once skipped around the school, and choosing the name that we know him as in the modern day. Back at the park, Skip finishes his story to a teary Mordecai and Rigby as the pair begin to rethink their jealousy regarding Skip's immortal state. Meanwhile, the episode ends with Skip admiring the same locket he once gave to Mona, proving that his story and his love were both true.
Dude,
That was kind of a downer.
Compared to most of the other shows that I talk about on this channel, it's no secret that regular show is more comedy focused than the majority of them, and subsequently it reaches comedic highs that most shows never even come close to reaching. Yet, in this double-length episode from the middle of the show's run, the series crafted a story that, while still having some truly hilarious jokes, completely recontextualizes the character and his role within the cast. Skip's care for his co-worker is seen in a different light, being a reflection of his love for Mona and his oath to keep trying to stay close to her throughout his eternal life. Overall, this episode definitely has some flaws. Its bloated middle leads to a rushed ending, but it still manages to deliver a surprisingly emotional plot out of a parody of teen school romances, and its ability to take an aspect of a character as simple as him being called Skips because he skips, and turning that into a constant reminder of his one and only love that was taken from him and a sacrifice that he's forced to face the failure of every 157 years, yeah, it's pretty stinking impressive. Anyway, that's gonna be about it for me. Sorry for the gap in uploads since the last video, but I kind of went overboard with the amount that I was putting out in such a short period of time, and I had to slow it down a bit. Moving forward, I'll try to put out a more consistent schedule of sorts, but something tells me that I'll just end up posting videos randomly anyway. Speaking of which, if you have an idea for something I should cover from a cartoon, yell at me in the comments or find me on whatever's left of Twitter. Either way, this has been AmpleSamuel, and I'll see you with another video in slightly less than 157 years. Thanks for watching.